welcome back to Authenticity Speaks. My name is Trista Eckerman, the host of this podcast. I hope you guys are having a wonderful April. I am loving the spring weather is finally coming out in Utah. It is giving me all the happy feelings. Everything, it just feels a lot better and goals are easier because, it's warm outside and you actually want to get out and do things. Now, this week has been a little crazy for me. I won't lie to you. I have been house shopping with my sister. I have been trying to record both my podcasts in a decent amount of time. I have been trying to study for an exam coming up, to my last exam to be licensed fully. And then just like being a person who advocates for my rights. Just a lot of different things that I've been doing. And so a little bit of compassion fatigue has been haunting me, but also I think with the sun coming out, I've been feeling a lot better, which is awesome. But like I said, house hunting has been a little bit of a chore. I also want to remind my clients who are listening to this podcast about our therapeutic relationship in any of my podcasts that if you feel like it's going to affect our therapeutic relationship, just to stop listening, because again, I am a human with my own opinions, but that doesn't, affect how I see you. So please keep that in mind. Be mindful of yourself and what you need to do to make sure that our therapeutic relationship stays strong. So today, as you kind of noticed by the title, I am going over your balanced life and if your life is balanced and how you can get a balanced life, right? What makes a well-balanced life? How can I get to that place? What goals will get me the most balanced life? Well, I think that there are many different things that you can do to balance your life, but sometimes having a little bit of a template can be helpful. I know a lot of people are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you're not familiar, Maslow created a hierarchy. It's a great starting place to work on. It helps you understand what you need most and takes you step by step about what type of goals to make. However, personally, I think the pyramid is a little bit flawed as it's a very narrow-minded step-by-step. But when I say narrow-minded step-by-step, you can't move on to step 2 without completing step 1. And knowing what I know about, Western civilization compared to, other places around the world, we're not better than anybody else. So sometimes Maslow's hierarchy of needs doesn't work for everybody because everybody's culture is different. So that's why I don't love Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but I think it's a great starting place if you kind of want to know the basics. But I'm going to introduce to you later in the podcast something that I like to use personally a lot better to help you feel like you are making goals to meet your needs. But let me break down Maslow's hierarchy. It has 5 different levels shaped like a pyramid. It speaks about how we need to focus on moving up the pyramid to reach the top and become the most quote-unquote self-actualized version of you. Starting at the bottom of the pyramid, we have the needs to address physiological needs. These are things such as meeting your most basic needs. Do I have access to clean water? Do I have access to food? Do I have access to clean clothing? Do I have a place for shelter? So the bottom of the pyramid goes over our basic levels, the basic needs that we need to survive. This level, you can't get to level 2 without completing this level. So in Maslow's head, he said, okay, if your health is not taken care of, you can't focus on any other areas. But for some people, they don't have access to clean clothing or clean water. So I wouldn't say that this one needs goals. Again, this is me justifying why I don't love Maslow's hierarchy of needs as much. Because again, what it's saying is, I can't work on my love life if I don't have clean water. And that's not true. Again, it's based off of where you live. So take this with a grain of salt. It's defined on your basic needs. Maslow argues that if the basic needs aren't met first, then you cannot move on to the other levels or thrive in the other levels. The next level up would be safety needs. Needs such as personal security, employment, resources, or health. Some would argue property here, but I can look at that more as like living spaces that you own, right? The next one would be love and belonging. In this category, you're focusing on friendship, intimacy, family, and a sense of connections. Then moving to esteem, this would look like respect, self-esteem, status, recognition, strength, freedom. Again, I don't love this layout because to me, in my personal opinion, I should be working on my esteem first, like my self-esteem, before I'm even thinking about getting into an intimate relationship with a partner. But I digress. The last is self-actualization. At this point, you've reached your utmost potential. It is the desire to become the most you can be. You're at your highest level. There's really nowhere else to go, which is, again, something that I didn't like, because there's always something that you can work on and achieve and be more of. Now that I've reviewed Maslow's hierarchy of needs, let's jump into the importance of finding the balance in your life. When it comes to finding balance, I don't feel like I need all of these areas to be taken care of before I can move on to the next level. I do believe, and I do understand, that equilibrium in life comes from balance in all areas. Although, again, I like Maslow's hierarchy, I believe that there are many ways to understand that equilibrium in life comes from balance in all areas. So you don't necessarily need to go from the bottom up, but you can look sideways, up and down. You can look horizontal, vertical, and work on those goals yourself. So instead, let me introduce you to UCI Assessing Your Life Balance Wheel. I also don't want to take accountability for this wheel, but there are so many great things you can do with it. I love this wheel, and I incorporate it a lot when I'm in therapy. 1, making goals that help balance your life. It can make goals in all of the different categories and help you feel like you are working on something. 2, notice where you are putting too much energy and which areas of your life you're ignoring. 3, understand how you have control over your life and have the ability to control how much effort you put into each area. This wheel is helpful because it is based on self-assessment. It asks questions to kind of understand ways that you may or may not be putting effort into areas of your life that you didn't even realize you were putting effort into. For example, me personally, I feel like I need to work on my spiritual side of myself. But one of the statements it asks is, in that section, I have a sense of meaning and purpose in my life. I would not have considered that a spiritual portion of my life, but when it breaks it down like that, I'm like, I guess that would make sense how that is a spiritual purpose. I do have meaning. I do have purpose in my life. So it would make sense to go into this category. Let me break down the 6 categories. They're spiritual, intellectual, physical, emotional, social, and financial. Each of these categories are areas of our life that make us feel stress, or, it gives us different ways we need to continue to grow as humans. We can also consider that everyone's wheel is balanced in different ways. For me, my desire to be more financially balanced has more of a priority than my spiritual health. So I may spend more time in the financial side than I would with the spiritual. And if I spend way too much time in the financial side, then everything else will kind of fall back and there would be no spiritual balance. Or, and this is why I like this one, it can look completely different. I may be fulfilled in all areas, but still think I could do better in all of these areas. I may feel fulfilled in all my areas, right? And I still think I could do better in all of these areas. So the statements they suggested are just hypothetical statements. You don't necessarily need to follow them, but you can use each of the 6 categories as a baseline to make a goal to improve your life in the way that you feel needs to be improved. Again, the biggest thing for me is sometimes I need to consider that not everybody's goals are balanced completely, or nor do they want their goals to be balanced completely. If I look at the list and I say, I actually don't want physical or emotional health, I don't want to worry about that in my life. I really don't care about that. So I'm going to make sure that I work on my spiritual, emotional, social, financial portion of that, or intellectual, whatever. And everybody's balance will look different. Everybody will be like, okay, I feel fulfilled if my physical lifestyle is at 60%, but if it drops below 30, I won't feel fulfilled. Again, this is something that you can look at visually and be like, what would make me feel the best? The perfectionist side of me is like, I need to be 100% at everything. And sometimes that's not possible. And sometimes I look at this and I'm like, okay, what goals can I continue to move towards or feel like I have purpose? Moral of the story. This tool will be amazing in determining life balance and get you back on track for spring goals. And, will help you move forward. So now you know where your life is balanced and you've made goals. What now? Start focusing on the small steps to reach those goals. If I jump into a spiritual goal head first, I may start neglecting what sections are already feeling balanced. If I do little things in my goals, they may not have as much of an impact on the other areas. If my goals is to spend more time with my friends, I will probably not jump into hanging out with them 7 days a week. I'd probably look for like a monthly thing I can do with my friends. That will get me one step closer to feeling balanced in my life without completely disrupting all of the other pieces of the wheel. Also consider how you want your future to look. I know I want to be financially stable. Am I doing what I need to right now on my balance sheet to get to that point in my life? What's neglected on that sheet that keeps me from getting to that point? For example, if I pull up the financial portion of this sheet, it talks about my spending and saving habits reflect my values and beliefs. Is that true? Am I spending all my money on DoorDash and makeup? Probably. So that doesn't really reflect on my values and beliefs that I should be saving for like my retirement, for example. So again, look at that, future and be like, am I working towards goals in this wheel to get me to where I want to be? You can also use this wheel to consider priority changes. This chart may not always look the same, so know you have control of goals and they may shift, and that's okay. Not all your goals are going to be the same throughout your entire life. Like I said, that's fine. That's completely fine. Basically, this sheet is a guidance to determine how balanced your life is and what goals you need to make to feel like you're going to be eventually balanced. That's the purpose, right? If my life feels off balance, then I'm not going to feel supported or able to move on because I am stressed and I don't know where it's coming from. And hopefully this will give you a story about what you need to do to feel fulfilled in your life. Anyway, another short episode, another good episode. Thank you all for listening. Again, I'm getting used to this whole podcast thing, but it has been such a great outlet for me. And so I really do appreciate all of my listeners. You can follow my social media on authenticityspeakspod. I think that's my Instagram. My personal account is it's Trista0 _ and then my personal TikTok is it's Trista0. You can listen to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Also out now is my sister and I's podcast on political and pop culture news called Tea and Ketchup on Spotify, Apple Pod, and YouTube. Those are longer episodes. I like to try and keep these ones a little bit smaller and bite-sized so you guys can have just a quick therapeutic tip in your life. Anyway, but I really do appreciate you all for listening. Again, I'm grateful to be able to have a platform to speak on and to learn all about podcasting. So if you guys have any tips and tricks to help me out and do a little bit better of a job here, that'd be great. Anyway, thank you all for listening. Bye.